Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well in these difficult times. If you're from the UK, you may have heard Boris Johnson announce recently how the UK is going to unlock itself after this current lockdown. And one thing he mentioned is that we might be able to go on foreign holidays again towards the end of this year. And so in today's video, I thought I would talk about my top 10 tips for traveling in 2021. This might be a bit of a long video, so I'll leave timestamps in the caption below for each of the tips I talk about in today's video, just in case you want to go take that exact bit. Tip number 1 is to sign up to some kind of online hotels loyalty program. For example, I've used hotels.com a lot in the past, and I think through the various occasions I've used it, I've built up about 2 or 3 free nights stay at any hotel. Now obviously I haven't made use of that in the past year or two, but hopefully towards the end of this year or maybe even next year I'll be able to make use of that. So yeah, hotels can be really expensive, especially if you go to like an expensive country like Switzerland or America. So it's really good to just sign up to some kind of loyalty program, and it doesn't cost you a thing, so why not? Following on from tip number 1, tip number 2 is to get some sort of travel credit card. Now there's loads out there. I personally have a British Airways Amex card, and it's really good because for every £2 you spend on the card, you get 1 air mile, which doesn't sound like a lot, but over the years, if you continue using the card, you can really build up a lot of air miles. In fact, right now I think I have enough air miles to fly a one-way trip to Europe somewhere, which obviously isn't that far, but hopefully I can continue to build up those air miles and go somewhere really far in the future with it. Obviously in the current pandemic world, finances are really low for everyone right now, and so tip number 3 is to always travel carry on if you can. If you have a proper backpack like the one I have, if you haven't already, make sure you watch my Barbados video where I give a little review into the backpack I use. But yeah, if you have a proper backpack, you can fit so much into it, and you'll also realize that a lot of the stuff we take with us on holidays is actually pointless and useless. Like, we never use half the stuff. Like, I know a lot of you pack like 10 pairs of outfits for a 3-day holiday, and it's just really not necessary. So when you try to carry on, it saves a lot of money, also saves a lot of time, because once you get off the plane, you can just grab your bag from the overhead locker and leave. You don't have to wait for baggage, especially if you're traveling on a short holiday. Then you don't really want to be wasting time waiting around in the airport for your baggage. So if you can, always try to carry on. It's so much cheaper and just easier and just so much more efficient. Tip number 4 is to plan ahead as much as possible. Now I know that's quite difficult in this pandemic, as the rules are constantly changing on what you can do and what you can't do, but typically flights are cheapest about 6 weeks before departure. Now I know sometimes you can get a really good bargain last minute, but more often than not that's not the case. If you can, try and plan early as much as possible, and hopefully the rules this time won't change. As a continuation from the last tip, tip number 5 is that it's often cheapest to fly out on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's often cheapest to fly back, at least from international, on a Wednesday. Now I can't talk about other countries, but that is usually the case in the UK, and if you're looking to save an extra couple of quid, then it's a no-brainer really. Tip number 6 is to use some kind of travel-friendly debit card. Now typically when you're abroad and you use a normal bank card, the transaction fees are stupidly high whenever you want to pay in foreign currency or whenever you want to withdraw from an ATM. So I really recommend getting a travel-friendly debit card. There's loads out there: Monzo, Starling, Curve, just something you can top up and use whilst you're on holiday. So I use a Monzo card which doesn't charge transaction fees in most countries, so definitely get one if you already have it. Tip number 7 is not to go on guided tours. From personal experience, they tend to be really expensive and really time consuming. Tour guides love to waffle along for no apparent reason, and yeah, often it's just easier to do your own research. So don't be lazy and just go about a place at your own speed. Now in some occasions you can't go into a place without a guided tour, and it is easier because they do tend to arrange all transport and everything, but more often than not it's always better to go about a place at your own speed and by yourself with your friends or family, rather than going on a guided tour. So tip 8 is to have some kind of backup plan, just in case what you plan to do on a day can't happen. For example, when I was in Iceland, one of the main things I wanted to do on the whole holiday was to see the Northern Lights. Unfortunately, due to my bad luck, it was cloudy every single day, so I couldn't see it. But luckily I had alternative plans and I was just able to do that instead. So it's really good to have a backup plan and not be fixated on doing just one thing on a typical day, especially if you're on a short holiday. You don't want to waste your time by doing nothing. So it's always good to be flexible and have backup plans. Tip 9 is to download an app called Maps.me. Now you can typically find those on the App Store and on the Android store, I think. It's a useful app because it allows you to download maps offline, which is really useful because typically when you're abroad you can rack up huge roaming charges by using the internet. Now luckily in the EU it's free to use the internet for UK customers. However, due to Brexit, there's a strong chance that roaming charges could return, so it's definitely a no-brainer downloading the app. It's good to have access to an offline map when you're on holiday, especially when you go on some kind of hike. It's just good to plan it out. I mean, there's been so many times where I've tried to go on hikes abroad and I've just got lost because I have no idea where I am. And signposting isn't always the greatest outside of the UK, so it's always good to have some kind of map on you just in case you ever get lost. And finally, tip number 10. Now, if this past year has taught us anything, it's that it's a good idea to have some kind of emergency fund, and this applies to traveling as well. When you're traveling, there could be some kind of issue with your flight, or there could be like a medical issue, and suddenly you'll find you need a lot of money. And so it's a good idea to have some kind of emergency fund just in case you ever encounter a situation like that, so they can get yourself home safely. Now, luckily, I haven't been in a situation like that myself yet, but it's always good to carry some sort of emergency fund with you, and I recommend you never touch it unless such emergency arises. So yeah guys, those were my 10 tips for traveling in 2021. If there's enough interest, maybe I can do a part 2 later this year. And I'd also love to know if you guys have any tips, and if you do, make sure you drop them in the comments below, and hopefully we'll all be able to travel properly again very soon. I'm filming this video in Epsom Common. At the time of filming it's around 8 AM, and as you can see there's barely anyone here. And it's just really nice going for a walk sort of first thing in the morning by yourself. It's just nice to collect your thoughts and just enjoy some peace and quiet. Thank you guys for making it this far into the video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. If you have, make sure you like the video, and whilst you're there, why don't you subscribe to me as well? With restrictions being eased in the UK, hopefully from next month onwards I'll be able to make more travel videos, at least in the UK. And yeah, I guess until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.